Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. We are starting with something I'm a little bit late to, but still something worth going over, and that is a new rumor coming from a credible insider about Sony getting ready to host another State of Play in February. Being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle, a reliable insider has teased that the next PlayStation State of Play event will be sometime in February 2025. The insider is none other than Nate the Hate, who most recently accurately leaked the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement that has taken social media by storm. Naturally, people want to know what other secrets the insider is holding as well, and apparently one of them is the next PlayStation event. In a response to a follower who asked about the next State of Play, Nate the Hate tweeted, "How's February sound?" Although Nate the Hate's track record with leaks is pretty good, we advise everybody to continue to take it with a grain of salt, which, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But at this point in time, it seems that Nate the Hate has truly proven himself as one of the most reliable insiders in the industry now. He's been accurate many times in the past, so he didn't really have much to prove. But with the whole Nintendo Switch 2 reveal event, I think it's safe to say he's kind of on another level now, because pretty much everybody assumed he was going to be wrong because of the way Nintendo handled it. But yes, it seems that Sony is getting ready to do a State of Play in February, and this is not that surprising. I was thinking that there was a pretty good chance Sony would want to do a State of Play in January, but February makes just as much sense. It'll be really interesting if they do a State of Play in February, what they're actually going to show up with, if we can expect anything from first party. Something that Sony has been doing pretty much for the last year with their last 3 State of Plays is showing up with something related to their first party studios, so I will keep you guys updated. Moving on to the next topic, we have more good news for Astro Bot. There's an original story here with an update from Push Square. They say it appears Team Asobi has more content planned for Astro Bot, but the evidence is sourced from a rather unlikely place, a jigsaw puzzle. Following his departure from PlayStation, Shuhei Yoshida has been sent a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle of the PS5 ship featured in the game and lots of special bots surrounding it. Eagle-eyed users have now noticed that the image shows a character that currently isn't in the game, suggesting they will at some point in the future drop some new content. And so the update here says it turns out there really is more Astro Bot levels and special bots on the way, as during a PlayStation Tournaments XP event, a new speedrun stage has been revealed. And there is footage of this speedrun stage out there circulating on the internet. As of the time of this recording, there is no official announcement, but it does seem like Sony and Team Asobi are going to continue to support Astro Bot. I do wonder if this is going to be the final level or if they're just going to continue to add more and more. But either way, I don't think anybody is complaining about more Astro Bot content. Moving on to the next topic, we have an update regarding the PS5 Pro's PSSR and how it's quietly being improved behind the scenes, once again from PlayStation Lifestyle. Following some early criticisms of PS5 Pro's PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, it looks like Sony's making continuous back-end improvements to its technology. According to a developer working on the PS5 Pro version of their game, there are already a few versions of PSSR and things are quickly improving. Although the PS5 Pro impressed at launch, some games that were patched with Pro enhanced updates ended up experiencing graphical issues, including but not limited to excessive shimmer. Sony did not publicly acknowledge the issue, but players found that switching to 120 FPS resolved some of the issues. Fast forward to yesterday when Star Wars Jedi Survivor received a PS5 Pro update to fix some visual issues. The official patch notes mentioned that the game was updated to the latest PSSR version. Following this, a developer behind Truck Driver The American Dream revealed on Reset Error, thanks to Reddit, that PSSR is improving at a relatively good pace. The developer also said that while they are unable to reveal how frequently PSSR is revised, there have been a few updates already and their game is also moving to the latest version. So yeah, this is a game that definitely had some issues with the first PS5 Pro patch, but it's worth noting that Digital Foundry did do a deep dive analysis of Star Wars Jedi Survivor with this updated PS5 Pro patch. And it's interesting because if you look in the comments of that video, a lot of people are saying that Digital Foundry should be giving a little bit more credit to PSSR because it seems that in motion for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, PSSR is actually outperforming DLSS ever so slightly. And that's what people are kind of focused on. You know, they're saying that when you play a game, you're in motion. So what you see when you're in motion should be more important than what you see when you're standing still. And so because of that, some players feel as though the edge should be given to PSSR in this case. It's neither here nor there. I don't think it's a big deal. I think the most important thing is that PSSR is getting improved frequently behind the scenes. It's getting better very quickly, and I think at the end of the day, if you're somebody who's planning on playing PS5 Pro games, that's all you really want to hear, right? So there's some good news for the PS5 Pro as well as PSSR, but we are moving on to the next topic, which is a report from insider Jeff Grubb, and I actually think that people are going to see this as good news. We did just recently cover the extremely unfortunate and just kind of baffling news that Bluepoint's God of War live service game was canceled, as well as Sony Bend's live service game being canceled after years of development. Well, Jeff Grubb has now chimed in and revealed why this actually occurred, and this is why I think some people might see this as good news. During the latest episode of Jeff Grubb's podcast, he reports that Bend Studio and Bluepoint Games live service game cancellations are due to Concord's launch, in which servers shut down just 2 weeks after its release. He also claims that Sony is currently reassessing every single project with its current live service slate under the most scrutiny. So he says this happened because of Concord. Like, this should be clear. That's what I've been told. Sony is shell-shocked from Concord, and now they're going around to every studio and they're reassessing every single project. And if it's a live service project, it has a lot of friction going against it, preventing it from getting a chance to actually come out. And it is almost certain that they won't be able to greenlight on a live service project, and they know that. So this is, I think, some valuable insight that we're getting from Jeff Grubb because, you know, a lot of people assumed that this was the reason these games were canceled, but we can really never know. But Jeff Grubb is coming out and saying, yes, Concord rattled Sony's cage so badly that they are now going around and basically bringing the hammer down on all of their live service games. And I think that's a good thing. It means that they've learned that whatever their approach was to live service, whatever they thought was going to work, as we saw with Concord, is not going to work and is actually likely to do incredible amounts of damage to not only the studios, but the brand and just everything around it, right? So the fact that they are going around being extremely critical of these live service games to a point where they're like, you know what, just cancel it. I can't say that I'm upset at Sony for doing this. I'm upset at them for going in this direction in the first place. You know, again, Bluepoint Games making a God of War live service, that is unbelievable, but them kind of like, you know, snapping out of it and waking up, and I guess Concord being the thing to do it, you know, I'd rather see them come out and say, you know what, just cancel it, forget it, we're not even going to bother, we're going to pivot away from this. And I also want to highlight the part where Jeff Grubb says that these studios also now understand that if they attempt to pitch another live service game, it's likely going to get rejected. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's relatively safe to assume that the next game pitches from both Bluepoint as well as Sony Bend are going to be single-player games. And I don't think people are going to be upset about that, but it is still frustrating that we're going to have to wait, you know, another 4 to 6 years potentially to actually see these games. But there you go. I wanted to make sure to cover this as a follow-up to the recent news. But we are going to move on to the final topic of the video, which talks about a recent interview that Shuhei Yoshida did with Kinda Funny's Greg Miller. This was his first interview after officially being retired from PlayStation after 31 years of service. So in the interview, he mentions how he was not a big fan of the live service push and how he would have resisted it. And he also added to that if he did that, he probably would have been removed from his position. He says, for me, like I was saying, I was managing this annual budget and I was responsible for allocating money to what kind of games to make. If, the company was considering that, it probably wouldn't have made sense to stop making another God of War or a single player game and put all the money into these live service games. After giving his personal take, he does explain that he doesn't believe Sony told Herman Hulst to stop making single player games. Instead, the company gave them more resources for the live service push while continuing their proven work in single player games. He also states that he hopes the strategy will work in the end. Very interesting timing of Shuhei Yoshida saying this after what we just learned about with Bluepoint and Sony Bend's projects. It's also interesting that he mentions God of War there. And so, yes, this is a reason why I think a lot of people would have wanted to see Shuhei Yoshida remain in a leadership position at PlayStation, because he is just straight up saying he would have resisted that. He would have stuck by the single player, strength of PlayStation. But one other thing I want to mention here, because there were more things he revealed in this interview, but something I do just want to bring up is what he had to say about Bloodborne. He did acknowledge it, and he said he's not revealing any new information, but basically what Shuhei Yoshida said is that he believes that Sony understands that Miyazaki wants to be the one to work on anything Bloodborne related. He holds it in very high regard, and Sony is actually respecting that and just kind of waiting for him to be a little bit more freed up to maybe approach him to see if he wants to do something with Bloodborne in the future, and that's why Sony isn't touching it or doing anything with it. I thought it was very interesting that he touched on this in the interview. Again, he's making it clear that that's just his theory. That's what he claims. It's just his theory. He's not revealing anything new, but it would actually make a lot of sense, because Miyazaki has stated in the past that his favorite project he ever worked on was Bloodborne, and you can imagine that Sony is not trying to upset Miyazaki if they plan to work with him in any capacity in the future. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.